What if the most dangerous person in your life didn't need a weapon? What if all they needed was a few carefully chosen words? Because in Cape Fear Episode 7, Mongrel, Max Cady proves that breaking someone's mind can be far more devastating than hurting them physically. This isn't just another episode filled with shocking twists. It's the moment the entire story changes direction. Long-held mysteries finally begin to unravel, hidden family secrets come to light, and the Bowden family realizes something terrifying. They're no longer just fighting Max Cady, they're slowly becoming more like him. And by the end of this episode, one innocent family member will unknowingly help Max cover up a murder. So grab your popcorn because we're diving deep into Cape Fear Episode 7, exploring the biggest moments, the hidden symbolism, and the psychological games that make this one of the season's most important chapters. After several episodes built around mystery and slow-burning tension, Mongrel shifts the focus toward revelation. Instead of asking who Max Cady is, the episode begins asking a far more unsettling question: what created him? For the first time, the story steps outside the Bowden family's perspective and explores the scars Max has carried since childhood. Those revelations don't excuse his actions, but they do show how cycles of abuse can echo across generations. At the same time, the Bowdens reach a breaking point. Until now, they've spent most of the season reacting to Max's manipulations. In this episode, they finally decide to fight back, but the choices they make raise difficult questions about justice, revenge, and how far someone can go before becoming the very thing they're trying to stop. The episode opens exactly where the previous one ended. Inside the Bowden home, panic has taken over. Nevaeh has been discovered hiding within the unfinished walls of the house, confirming that someone has been secretly watching the family from inside their own home. Anna rushes to retrieve a gun from the family safe, while Tom desperately searches for Zach, who has mysteriously disappeared. It's one of the series' most chaotic openings, but beneath the action lies something even more disturbing. The Bowdens no longer know who they can trust, not even their own children. Meanwhile, Natalie searches through Nevaeh's belongings and uncovers evidence that reveals just how calculated this entire operation has been. Hidden among the items are devices and tools that suggest months of careful planning, rather than random acts of vandalism or intimidation. Every strange incident the family dismissed as bad luck suddenly feels connected. While chaos unfolds inside the house, Tom follows Zach's trail across the street. What he finds is heartbreaking. Zach isn't frightened. He isn't trying to escape. Instead, he appears completely comfortable standing beside Max Cady. The emotional distance between father and son has never felt greater. Then Max delivers one of the episode's most chilling lines, calmly suggesting that Zach belongs with him now. Whether he truly believes it or is simply trying to provoke Tom almost doesn't matter. The damage is immediate. Unable to control his anger any longer, Tom attacks Max in broad daylight. For a brief moment, it feels like weeks of frustration finally explode all at once, but then something changes. People stop, phones come out. Every punch is recorded, every second is captured without the audience knowing everything that led to the confrontation. It's a subtle reminder of one of the show's recurring ideas. In the modern world, whoever controls the story often controls the truth. Max understands that better than anyone. Rather than fighting back, he allows the cameras to transform him into the victim. It's another psychological victory, even while he's being beaten. The confrontation ends in tragedy. Zach, convinced that he's protecting someone he trusts, turns against his own family. His actions show just how deeply Max's influence has spread. Whether through emotional manipulation, psychological pressure, or calculated deception, Max has succeeded in driving a wedge between a father and his son. The episode later offers clues that help explain Zach's disturbing behavior, suggesting that his fragile mental state has been exploited over time. It's one of the clearest examples yet that Max doesn't simply attack people physically. He isolates them, he reshapes the way they see the world, and once that happens, they begin making choices that destroy themselves. As the dust settles, the Bowdens realize they can't keep playing defensive forever. While one investigation begins uncovering long-buried secrets about Max's family, another member of the Bowden household starts asking dangerous questions about her own past, and Max is already waiting with exactly the answers she wants to hear. But what happens next changes everything, because the road ahead doesn't just reveal where Max Cady came from, it sets another victim on a path from which there may be no return.
At first glance, Episode 7 looks like it's simply revealing more of Max Cady's past. But if you look a little closer, you'll notice something much more interesting. This episode isn't really about where Max came from. It's about how people become trapped in cycles of manipulation. And that's exactly what makes Mongrel one of the most important episodes of the season. Throughout the series, Max has committed terrible acts, but Episode 7 reminds us that violence isn't actually his greatest strength. His greatest strength is understanding people. He studies their fears, he notices their insecurities, and then he slowly builds trust until they begin questioning themselves instead of questioning him. That's a pattern we've seen all season. Every major character who falls under Max's influence starts by doubting someone they love. The real horror isn't that Max forces people to obey him, it's that he convinces them they're making their own decisions. That's psychological manipulation at its most dangerous. The title Mongrel immediately points us toward identity and belonging. Who belongs where? Who is accepted? Who is rejected? Throughout the episode, almost every major character struggles with those questions. Max confronts the family that shaped him. Natalie questions her own identity. The Bowdens begin questioning one another. Even Zach's tragic condition revolves around a distorted sense of family. Rather than focusing on biology alone, the episode asks a deeper question. Can family be defined by blood or by influence? That question hangs over every major scene. One of the most interesting developments isn't actually about Max, it's about the Bowdens. Earlier in the season, they believed the law would protect them. Now that confidence is disappearing. Fear changes people. Desperation changes people. As pressure builds, they begin considering choices they would have rejected at the beginning of the series. That's an important turning point. The story isn't only showing what Max is capable of doing, it's showing what constant fear can do to ordinary people. Perhaps the biggest emotional focus of the episode is Natalie. She's searching for certainty in a situation where almost nothing feels certain anymore. Questions about trust, family, and identity become increasingly overwhelming. Whether the answers she receives are true or false almost becomes secondary. Emotionally, she's looking for someone who seems confident, and that's exactly where Max becomes dangerous. He presents himself as someone who always has an answer. Even when viewers suspect he's manipulating events, his calm confidence makes him believable to vulnerable people around him. That's one reason the episode feels so unsettling. It isn't built entirely on physical danger, it's built on emotional uncertainty. The episode also explores Max's traumatic upbringing. Learning about his past helps explain why he behaves the way he does, but it's important to separate understanding from justifying. The series doesn't suggest trauma automatically creates violence. Instead, it explores how unresolved abuse can leave lasting emotional scars. Max's childhood becomes another piece of the puzzle, rather than an excuse for his actions. That distinction is one of the episode's strongest ideas. By the end of Mongrel, the story feels very different from where it started. Earlier episodes focused on mystery. Now the focus has shifted towards consequences. The central questions are no longer simply, what is Max planning? Instead, viewers begin asking, who can still be trusted? How much damage has already been done? And can the Bowden family recover before everything falls apart? Those questions create momentum heading into the final stretch of the season.
He's changing them. Earlier in the season, Max was an outsider. He stood across the street. He watched. He waited. He manipulated events from a distance. But episode 7 shows something completely different. Now he barely needs to do anything. The damage is already happening inside the Bowden family itself. Trust is disappearing. Fear is growing. Communication is breaking down. And once that happens, Max doesn't have to force chaos anymore. The family begins creating it themselves. That's a fascinating shift in the storytelling. The real conflict is no longer physical, it's psychological. One of the strongest themes in this episode is fear. Every major character reacts to it differently. Some become angry, some become desperate, some become isolated. Others start making decisions they never imagined they would make. That's exactly how psychological pressure works. It doesn't always destroy people immediately. Instead, it slowly changes the way they think. The writers cleverly show that fear spreads almost like an infection. Once one person's judgment becomes clouded, everyone around them starts making worse decisions too. Perhaps the most important development isn't about Max at all. It's about the Bowdens. Throughout the season, they've tried to remain the good people. They believed patience and honesty would eventually win. But constant pressure changes even good people. When fear becomes overwhelming, survival starts replacing morality. That's one of the episode's most interesting ideas. The series asks an uncomfortable question. If someone keeps pushing you long enough, at what point do you begin acting like them? That's a question with no easy answer, and the writers wisely leave it open for viewers to think about. Many thrillers measure villains by how many people they hurt. Cape Fear measures Max differently. His greatest victories aren't physical, they're emotional. Every time someone loses trust, Every time a relationship begins to crack, every time someone acts out of fear, Max gains another advantage. That's why he remains such a fascinating antagonist. He's always playing a much longer game than everyone else. One thing this episode does especially well is using symbolism instead of lengthy explanations. Water represents transformation. Home represents security, but that security has completely collapsed. Family becomes less about blood and more about influence. Even moments that seem ordinary often carry emotional meaning beneath the surface. Those visual choices help make the episode feel more psychological than action-driven. It's a reminder that some of the biggest battles happen inside a person's mind.
By the time the credits roll on episode 7, one thing becomes painfully clear. This story is no longer just about revenge. It's about control. Control over memories, control over fear, control over identity, and perhaps most importantly, control over the stories people tell themselves. One of the biggest strengths of this episode is that it reminds us the greatest threats aren't always physical. Throughout the season, Max has demonstrated that he understands something most people overlook. If you can influence how someone thinks, you don't always have to force them to act. Fear, doubt, guilt, and isolation can become powerful weapons on their own. That idea sits at the heart of episode 7. Rather than relying on constant action, the episode explores how emotional pressure can slowly reshape relationships and decisions. Perhaps the most significant change isn't something Max does, it's what happens to the Bowden family. For much of the season, they tried to respond with patience, logic, and faith in the system. But episode 7 suggests that prolonged fear can erode even the strongest moral foundations. As pressure builds, the choices become more complicated. The series doesn't present easy heroes or easy villains. Instead, it asks viewers to consider how desperation can blur the line between justice and revenge. That's one of the reasons the story feels more like a psychological drama than a traditional thriller. Max Cady works as a character because he isn't driven by chaos alone. He studies people. He understands their weaknesses. He notices emotional fractures that others ignore. Whether he's speaking calmly or provoking conflict, every interaction seems carefully calculated. That unpredictability keeps the audience engaged. You never know exactly what he'll do next, but you always feel there's a larger strategy behind it, and that makes him one of the most intriguing characters in the series. Episode 7 also sets the stage for several larger ideas that the story appears ready to explore. First is the cost of revenge. Can anyone pursue justice without sacrificing part of themselves? Second is the weight of family history. The episode suggests that the past doesn't simply disappear. It continues influencing future generations unless it's confronted. And finally, there's the search for identity. Several characters are questioning who they are, what they believe, and whether the people closest to them are who they thought they were. Those emotional conflicts are likely to become just as important as the external danger. Whether you loved every twist or found some development surprising, there's no denying that episode 7 marks a major turning point for the season. The mystery-driven opening chapters have given way to a story that focuses on consequences, fractured relationships, and the emotional scars left behind by manipulation and fear. Instead of simply asking what will happen next, the episode encourages a deeper question. What happens to people after trust is broken? That question may ultimately define the ending of the series. And if the remaining episodes continue building on these ideas, the finale has the potential to be less about defeating a villain and more about whether the characters can reclaim themselves after everything they've endured.